Hello. Hi, everybody. Hi. Today's talk is inspired by the work of Brene Brown. Many of you likely are familiar with it, and I'll be doing upcoming classes on this particular work called the Atlas of the Heart. Atlas of the Heart. And I love this graphic, even of the heart as a part of nature. And the subtitle here is We Are the Map Makers and the Travelers. So let's see how it's true. This inspired me, this particular quote. So often when we feel lost, adrift in our lives, our first instinct so often is to look out into the distance to find the nearest shore. However, that shore, that solid ground, is not out in the distance. It is within us. The basis of our New Thought Unity teachings and principles. Scripture says it's closer than our hands and our feet. So within us, it is within us. That which we seek is within us. That which I seek is within me, not in a person, not in a thing, not in a situation, not in the horizon, not in the distance. The anchor we are searching for is connection. And it is internal, a connection with higher self, higher consciousness, creator, God, higher power, whatever you refer to it as. And to form meaningful connections with others, I must first connect with myself. I call it presence, to be in presence. So to have more meaningful connections with others requires me first to connect with myself. And to do either, we must first establish a common understanding of the language of emotion and human experience. So that's what we'll be exploring together. And if you can come or want to come to the classes, please do. And if you know somebody else that would want to come, get the word out to them if they could use some bolstering up around this. So as we kind of dive in here today, let's look at places where we go when things are uncertain. Where do you go when things seem uncertain? Where do you go when things become too much? Or we think and believe it's too much? So what's some examples of what's causing you to feel stressed or overwhelmed or anxious or worried? And for me, I know that sometimes I have a tendency, a pattern, so to speak, to avoid or deny. Maybe you can relate to that. So what's the consequences of this? What can we learn today from the places that we go when we get anxious, upset, worried, afraid, overwhelmed? So think about it then in terms of, and I want to say a little bit about worry, because worry was an enemy of mine for a while, decades probably. But I remember reading something in my psychology studies that worry takes a bad rap, and that worry is not problematic in itself, that it's also worry that causes my brain, my mind, to go to problem solving. It can spur my worry, what am I going to do, or this looks like a problem, to also to go into how am I going to solve this. So that's a great use of the power of worry, for example. So think about it then, what would happen today if you shifted the way you look at worry as it's not an enemy, there's nothing for me to be against here. And I'm going to use worry, though, not to let worry take over, but to say I'm going to use worry to prompt me into what would work here, what has worked here, what have I done in the past that worked, what do other people do in situations like this, so that we have a chance to say, I have accept that I'm going to have some worry, and I'm also going to use that worry to prompt me into the upper part of my brain, the more co-creative, collaborative, innovative, intentional, thoughtful part of my brain, so that the worry then doesn't regress me into the lower part of my brain where I get more frozen, more stuck, and more likely to respond like an animal instead of like from the higher brain part of me. This also then is then to look at what is causing some of our stress and worry and overwhelm and all of that. So this is referred to as thieves of joy. What are some of your thieves of joy? So we'll look at a few of them today. And one of them I know for me is comparison. And I say it as compare equals despair. So comparison is the thief, kills creativity, kills joy, the shoulda, woulda, coulda. It's also not an emotion itself. And even though it's not an emotion, it generates feelings. And those feelings of comparison absolutely affect our relationships. It affects our self-worth, our self-confidence. It affects the way that I feel about myself and therefore how I present in the world. And the worst part of this maybe is, in most cases, it's often without our awareness. It's often from a subconscious place in us, which you've heard many times with the majority of what is going on. Until the subconscious is made conscious, then the subconscious is running the show. And this results in me hurting others. It could result in me hurting myself. Everyone does it. We compare and decide about a social standing. We evaluate our past, our present, our future using comparison. Certainly our self-worth and our feeling of well-being is significantly affected by how I'm going to compare myself to others. So it's not generally going to help me if I'm comparing myself to keep a story going about what I could have done, should have done, would have done, what I don't have that I should have had, what I didn't get that I wanted, what I believed that I needed and didn't get. So think about how this one thing might change your experience in caring for the well-being of your heart, to stop comparing, or at a minimum to compare less. Let's then look at the envy, like the emotion of envy. So this is literally described as when I want something that the other has. The one has something and the other one doesn't have it. So what are you envious for? What revolves around the envy energy that you have? It's typically one of these three things. Something about attraction, popularity, some physical something they have, or a physical look, or a physical mobility, maybe. It could be also a romantic interest or attractiveness. The second area is competence, that we have envy that we don't have the skills, talents, intelligence, and that other people have. And the third area is usually lifestyle, like we don't have the wealth and the means and the prestige and the prominence and other things that others have. It can either also, depending on how far this goes, envy without maturity, envy without awareness, envy without an intervention, envy without a choice can enter into hostility. So slippery slope for me. That when my envy becomes unchecked, uncared for, not met with some understanding, it's pretty easy to have a chronic anger, a chronic hostility about it. And what I missed out on or what they got that I didn't, and how awful, 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 and unfair that is. So it's not one that we're proud to own. It's generally seen as a negative emotion, and it's still one that no one, me or anyone else, is immune from, this envy. Jealousy is similar to it, and described as when we fear losing somebody or something, like a relationship or a valued part of the relationship that we already had. When we feel sad, angry, or feel fearful about this due to losing or perceiving that we've lost a valued part of the relationship, jealousy is common. And even though it may be considered more acceptable than envy, like it's less of a cardinal sin, it can have very dire consequences, this jealousy, including addictions, violence, and all matters of things. And these acts of passion or crimes of passion that are often caused from this. Not always dangerous, though, however. It's the amount of this that matters the most. A little of it is normal in relationships. And some of us, I know, and I've witnessed this in some enlightened beings, pretending like we don't have jealousy or anything versus just owning it and knowing that it's normal. We don't actually pick that. And people more satisfied in relationships are less likely to have jealousy. But we also, those that are deeply satisfied in a relationship, are also more likely to sharply react when the trust has been breached in those two. So the encouragement today is to stop judging our emotions. Instead of, oh, I had envy, ain't that awful? I have envy, I was bad, I committed a sin, jealousy is so bad. So that instead of that, we see them clearly. And as we see them clearly, these and all the other emotions, that we can learn from them. So instead of becoming victims in their presence and trying to avoid them, suppress them, depress them, disown them, deny them, and therefore our futile attempts to avoid is what's giving them the energy behind them. It's what keeps them fueled up, so to speak. So the invitation here for me and for anybody who can hear this is to meet them with some understanding, to meet these emotions with openness, and to know that they're here literally as teachers for us. The emotions are here to teach. And it takes courage to explore this emotional feels. It takes courage to explore these, what's considered generally as negative emotions, and certainly to do so with a willingness and open-heartedness to learn. That all emotions are here, have something to teach, and jealousy and envy are particularly impactful teachers, and that we are, as we look then at how this can highlight a part of our life that we're trying to control, or people or experiences we're trying to control or possess, is the cause of this. And it can highlight the areas where we feel at a deep level that we ought to have something that we don't have. So teachers. So back to, I'm a student, I'm a student, I'm a student. So questions to ask, maybe. Do I feel entitled to this person's undivided attention? Where did I get that I was going to get all of their attention? What is it I think and believe and feel like I'm missing out on? What is the basis of my fear that this person is not going to be there for me or is going to reject me? What is the basis of that fear? And then maybe the best question of all can be, what am I looking for in that person, or what am I looking for in that relationship that I cannot cultivate in myself? And what would it be like if, instead of seeking this from another person or seeking this from another relationship, if I took responsibility for my own heart's well-being and began to cultivate it in myself and gave to myself what I've been wanting someone else to give me, likely since we were little bitty kids. So, what if the one we're looking for is us? And where we're looking for it is literally inside of us, as the quote and the text says. So, a big deep breath. Good friends aren't afraid of your light. Good friends aren't afraid of other people's lights. Good friends want to light the light of others, not seek out of jealousy or envy or something for them to be less or diminished. Good friends, people alive in their heart, would not blow out our own flame, and we would not blow out your flame. So I don't blow out my own flame. I take responsibility for the light within me, and I don't blow out the flame of others. And I don't allow others to blow out my flame either. Even when it's really, really bright, and even when it may be too bright for some, or apparently too bright for some, it is not to diminish my light. It's not going to help them or me. From Brené Brown's quotes, nothing that celebrates the humiliation or pain of another person builds lasting heart connection. Nothing that celebrates the humiliation or pain of another person builds lasting heart connections. Now, as I read that and reflect on that again, it's like, well, right, duh, of course not. And look at the tendency to, we likely wouldn't call it, we celebrate somebody else's pain. But that little egoic payoff, that kind of wound currency that we get, that somebody else that's hurt us is in pain, like they got what they deserved, or some kind of subtle and not so subtle gloating over somebody else suffering. So let's take a look at it for our own sake. Let's take another look for our own sake this week, and for the sake of our heart, and the sake of our heart's health. We are the map makers. I am the map maker for the atlas of this heart. I'm also the traveler. So I am the map maker and the traveler. Would you say that with me? I am the map maker in the atlas of my heart. I am the atlas of my own heart. I am the map maker in that atlas of my heart. And I am the traveler of that map. So what path will we choose today? What new places can we go? And caring for our heart. Mapping meaningful connection to ourself, our high self, and therefore being able to deepen and extend those meaningful connections out to humanity. When I graduated high school many, many years ago, I got a card that I remember very, very well, every word that was written on it in this woman's handwriting, who was one of my mother's best friends. And this is what it said: "The future lies before you like a field of fallen snow. Be careful where you step, for every step will show." That's what I believe about the map of our heart, also, the atlas of our heart. Be careful where you step, for every step shows. Every step will show. Bless you, friends. All the richest blessings I confer to you, to and for you. MarthaCreek.com to contact me. Hope you'll join in on some of the classes, and I'll see you there or any way that we can connect here. Blessings and love.